Something is shifting in South Africa, and it's making people deeply uncomfortable. Not long ago, the headlines were dominated by attacks on foreign African nationals. Now, reports and viral clips suggest tensions are spreading in new directions, with white individuals and businesses also becoming targets in certain incidents. Is this a continuation of xenophobia, or something more complex, more dangerous, and more deeply rooted in the country's past? And the question that many are now asking, quietly or loudly, is this: who is really being targeted and why? Before going further, hit like and subscribe to stay informed on stories that others avoid or oversimplify, because what you're about to hear isn't just a headline, it's a pattern that could shape the future of an entire nation. South Africa is not just any country. It carries one of the most complicated and painful histories in modern times. Decades of apartheid created deep racial divisions, economic inequality, and lasting mistrust. When apartheid officially ended in 1994, it marked the beginning of a new democratic era. But while laws changed, the economic structure remained uneven. Wealth, land ownership, and access to opportunity did not shift overnight. Today, South Africa remains one of the most unequal societies in the world. Unemployment is high, especially among young Black South Africans. Many feel locked out of economic progress, despite political freedom. At the same time, white South Africans, though a minority, still hold a significant portion of wealth and land. This imbalance continues to fuel resentment, frustration, and sometimes anger. Now, layer that with another issue: immigration. Over the years, South Africa has attracted migrants from across Africa, drawn by the promise of better opportunities. But as jobs become scarce, tensions rise. Some locals accuse foreign nationals of taking jobs, undercutting wages, or dominating certain sectors like small businesses. That's how xenophobia became a recurring crisis. Violent attacks against African migrants have erupted several times over the past decade. Shops have been looted. People have been displaced. Some have even lost their lives. But here's where things get disturbing. Recent conversations and incidents suggest that hostility is no longer directed only at Black foreign nationals. In some cases, white individuals, both locals and foreigners, are also being drawn into the narrative. Whether through isolated attacks, inflammatory rhetoric, or online campaigns, the tone is shifting. And that shift is raising serious questions about where this is all heading. To understand what's happening now, we need to look at how things unfolded. In the early 2000s, tensions around immigration began to surface more openly. By 2008, South Africa experienced one of its most violent outbreaks of xenophobic attacks. Dozens were killed, thousands displaced. The government condemned the violence, but critics argued that deeper issues were not being addressed. Over the years, similar patterns repeated. In 2015, another wave of attacks targeted foreign-owned shops. In 2019, violence erupted again, sparking international outrage and even diplomatic tensions with other African countries. Each time, the explanation seemed simple: economic frustration, competition for jobs, and lack of resources. But what happened next raised serious questions. Social media began amplifying voices that framed the issue differently. Some narratives shifted from "foreigners are taking jobs" to broader claims about who controls the economy, who benefits from opportunities, and who is being left behind. In this environment, certain individuals and groups started making more controversial statements. Some blamed foreign nationals. Others pointed to historical inequalities tied to race. And in the middle of it all, ordinary people, Black, white, local, and foreign, found themselves caught in rising tension. Then came viral clips and reports suggesting confrontations not just with Black migrants, but also involving white individuals. In some cases, white-owned businesses were accused of unfair hiring practices. In others, individuals were confronted in public spaces. But here's the part few people are talking about. Not all these incidents are clear-cut. Some are isolated disputes that get amplified online. Others are framed in ways that deepen division rather than clarify facts. And that makes it harder to separate reality from narrative. So what is really happening? Is this a coordinated shift in targeting, or Are these isolated incidents being used to push certain agendas? Let's break down the contradictions. On one hand, there are legitimate concerns about unemployment and inequality. Many South Africans feel excluded from economic opportunities, and that frustration is real. On the other hand, blaming entire groups, whether based on nationality or race, does not solve the problem. It often makes it worse. There's also the question of qualification and employment. Some argue that employers choose foreign workers because they are willing to accept lower wages. Others claim that hiring decisions are based on skills, experience, or work ethic. So when someone says, "If you are qualified, you'll get the job," is that always true? Or are there deeper structural issues at play? This is where the story becomes more complicated. South Africa's economy is not just about individual effort. It is shaped by education systems, access to networks, historical advantages, and systemic barriers. Two people can have the same qualification on paper, but vastly different opportunities in reality. And that brings us to another uncomfortable question. When frustration turns into anger, and anger turns into violence, who is responsible? Is it the individuals carrying out the attacks? The leaders who use inflammatory language? Or the systems that create the conditions for conflict in the first place? The impact of this situation goes far beyond isolated incidents. Politically, it puts pressure on leaders to respond. Governments must balance protecting citizens, maintaining law and order, and managing international relationships. When foreign nationals are attacked, it affects diplomatic ties. When racial tensions rise internally, it threatens national unity. Socially, it creates fear and mistrust. Communities that once coexisted peacefully begin to see each other as threats. Rumors spread quickly, often faster than facts. And in the age of social media, a single video can inflame tensions across the entire country within hours. Economically, the consequences can be severe. Businesses close. Investors become cautious. Tourism can decline. And in a country already struggling with unemployment, every disruption makes recovery harder. But perhaps the most dangerous impact is psychological. When people begin to believe that violence is justified, whether against foreigners or any group, it sets a precedent. It normalizes division. And once that line is crossed, it becomes harder to reverse. Public reaction has been mixed. Some voices strongly condemn all forms of xenophobia and racial targeting, calling for unity and accountability. Others defend certain actions, arguing that they are a response to real grievances. On social media, debates are intense, emotional, and often polarized. Officials have issued statements urging calm and warning against violence. But critics argue that words are not enough. They point to a lack of consistent action and long-term solutions. Meanwhile, media coverage varies. Some outlets focus on the human impact, stories of families affected, businesses destroyed, lives disrupted. Others highlight the political angle, analyzing what it means for leadership and policy. And then there are independent voices, content creators, activists, and everyday citizens trying to make sense of it all, each bringing their own perspective. So, what happens next? Authorities may investigate specific incidents, especially if there is evidence of organized violence or incitement. There could be arrests, court cases, and legal consequences for those involved. At the same time, broader discussions about immigration policy, economic reform, and social cohesion are likely to continue. But whether those discussions lead to real change is another question entirely. Because this is not just about one group or one incident. It's about a society trying to reconcile its past with its present, while facing an uncertain future. And that brings us back to the core issue. Is this about xenophobia? Is it about race? Is it about economic survival? Or is it all of these things combined in a way that makes simple answers impossible? One thing is clear, targeting any group, whether foreign nationals or based on race, does not address the root causes of inequality and unemployment. It shifts blame, but it does not create solutions. And if that pattern continues, the consequences could be far-reaching. Because when a society begins to turn on itself, the damage is not limited to one group. It spreads. Quietly at first, then all at once. So now the question is yours. Are these actions justified responses to real problems, or are they dangerous signs of deeper division? And more importantly, what needs to change to prevent this from escalating further?
Let me know what you think.